Guilt is not just a feeling. It is not just a reaction to the fact that you have done something wrong. It is one of the most ancient, deeply rooted and amazingly effective programmers of personal control. Why guilt specifically? Because it appeals to our most vulnerable place, the desire to be good, accepted, worthy of love. At first glance, guilt seems natural. We get used to thinking of it as a normal part of the psyche. But if we look more closely, it becomes clear, guilt is like an anchor that keeps us compressed and submissive. It is embedded so deeply into the personality structure that it becomes invisible. We simply live with it as an integral part of ourselves. But guilt is not just an emotion. It's a state. It is a superstructure, a system that suppresses the expression of will, freedom, and individuality. What is guilt really? Why do we feel it? And is it possible to free ourselves from it without feeling shame and fear? These are the questions we will deal with in this material, from psychological essence to esoteric views on matrix programs and subconscious codes. After all, to get out of the captivity of guilt, we must first realize how exactly it holds us. What is guilt and how is it formed? From a psychological perspective, guilt is a complex emotion that arises in response to the violation of moral norms. These norms can be either our own or externally imposed. Guilt can manifest itself both consciously, I did something wrong, and unconsciously, as a sense of inner wrongness. Most often guilt is based on the idea of one's own inadequacy. I am not what I should be, I am not worthy. This feeling is especially strong in childhood, when parents, or other significant adults teach us that love must be earned. Behavior that goes beyond their expectations is punished, and even if it's not physical punishment, it's at least coldness, detachment, resentment. The internal conclusion is that in order to be loved, I must be good. And everything that is not good leads to guilt. Over time, this mechanism of external control becomes internal. Now it is no longer the parents, but one's own voice inside, the inner critic, becomes the judge. It says, "You have failed again, you are not worthy, you have ruined everything." And even when everything seems to be going well, this critic finds something to blame. Guilt becomes habitual, almost a background condition. How does guilt work? In the initial stages of development, guilt can indeed be helpful. It signals that we have deviated from our values. But in the vast majority of people, it becomes chronic. In the neurotic form, guilt loses its connection to specific actions. We just feel guilty to our parents, our children, our partner, ourselves, the world. Even though we've done nothing wrong. From an esoteric point of view, guilt is one of the key matrix programs. Its function is to limit us. As soon as a person goes beyond the imposed scenarios, starts earning more, breaks toxic relationships, changes lifestyle, the guilt program is activated. And not always directly. There are strange events that cause feelings of guilt, or thoughts of am I doing the right thing? What if someone gets worse because of me? Guilt paralyzes the will. It turns inner strength into anxious self-criticism. You start saying to yourself, I can't do this. I must be different. I must be different. I can't be allowed to wish this, and instead of moving forward, you fall back into old patterns. Guilt and the body, where does it live? Guilt never exists only in the mind. It takes root deep in the body, turning into muscle clamps, into blocks, into chronic tension. It's as if the body remembers every situation where you blamed yourself consciously or not. Over time, these feelings turn into armor that restricts movement and prevents free expression. On a bodily level, guilt is often felt as tense shoulders and neck, as if you are carrying a weight that does not belong to you. Tight, shallow breathing like you're afraid to take a full breath. Tight chest feeling that you can't open up. A lump in your throat, inability to say what you want to say. Coldness, emptiness, tightness in the stomach, as if the center of power is shut down. But most importantly, everyone's guilt can live in a different place. It is very individual. For some people it goes to their feet, as if they have no right to move forward. For some in the face, as a mask of constant tension. For some, it goes to the heart, the solar plexus, the sacrum, or even the hands if the guilt is related to I shouldn't have done it. Posture of life, bent, apologetic. Such people are like carrying a heavy rucksack on their back. This is evident in the body's slumped shoulders, retracted rib cage, tightened voice. And in behavior, the apologetic tone, the downward glance, the uncertainty of action. It is a psychologically bent posture, the posture of a person who feels guilty for what he is. Why is it important to look for your guilt in the body? As long as guilt lives in the body, it controls us from within. Even if with the mind we understand everything, know the theories and affirmations, the body still holds the memory. Liberation begins not only with thoughts, but also with a feeling, I feel this. And I choose to let it go. This is why it is so important to learn to recognize guilt on a bodily level. It's a practice of honesty and presence. How to find guilt in the body, practices. Here are some simple, but profound practices to help you discover exactly where guilt is hiding in the body. 1. Practicing with a piece of paper. One of the most powerful and accessible techniques. How to do. Take a blank piece of paper. Write the word guilt on it in large letters. Place the sheet on the floor and stand on it with bare feet. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths in and out. Ask yourself, how do I feel standing on the guilt? Allow your body to respond. Don't think, feel. Where did the tension appear? What has changed in your breathing? What part of your body feels uncomfortable? Stay on this sheet for 1 to 2 minutes. Just observe. Then slowly get off the sheet. Stand next to it. Feel the difference. Afterwards, you should write down the sensations. This practice helps the body to remember and realize that guilt is not just a word, but a living energy that is already registered somewhere inside. 2. Body scan with a focus on guilt. Sit or lie down comfortably. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Say to yourself, I give myself permission to feel guilt, if it is in me. Without judgment. Just feel it. Begin to slowly scan your body, from the top of your head to your toes. At each area of the body, ask yourself, is there tension here? Is there a fault of mine here? If you feel pain, heaviness, tightness, coldness, or a strange throbbing, stop at that spot. Put your hand there. Breathe. Be. Don't analyze it, just feel it. End the practice with a warm inner message to yourself, I see you. I hear you. And I am ready to let go. 3. Practice talking with guilt through the body. Find a quiet place. Stand or sit comfortably. Turn inside yourself, where does my guilt live? Show me. Give your body a chance to respond. There may be an impulse to put your hand on your belly, tilt your head, squeeze your eyes shut. Allow the body to move. Let it show how the guilt manifests. It may be twisting, shivering, squeezing, trust it. When the movement is complete, put your hand where the tension was. Ask, what do you want to tell me? The inner answer may be unexpected, it could be a phrase, an image, a memory. Thank that place, even if nothing came up. Write down the response. 4. Breathing through the guilt zone. Lie on your back or sit with your back straight. Find a place in your body where guilt is felt. Imagine that you are breathing directly through that spot. On the inhale, gently illuminate it with your attention. As you exhale, allow the tension to leave. Do this for 5 to 10 minutes, taking your time. Sometimes the sensations will intensify, this is normal. Just continue the gentle breathing. Write down your observations and feelings after the practice. What do these practices provide? A return of connection to self and body. Awareness of where old feelings live. Emotional unloading. A gentle release of tension. Increased awareness. A feeling of lightness, warmth, acceptance. It is important to remember, guilt does not go away through prohibition. It cannot be suppressed or displaced, it will return. But it can be seen, recognized and released. This is not a path of force, but of love. And it requires not effort, but presence. If you practice it regularly, even 5 minutes a day, you will begin to notice your body becoming softer, your breathing deeper, and your inner support stronger. The journey of healing always begins with paying attention to yourself. And the body is the first and most honest helper along the way. Shame and guilt, what is the difference? Shame and guilt are feelings that often go side by side. People easily confuse them, because both states can be extremely painful and cause inner stiffness, anxiety, and self-condemnation. But there is a fundamental difference between them, and understanding this difference is already a step towards inner liberation. Shame is about I am bad in the eyes of others. Shame is the feeling that arises when we think we don't conform to other people's expectations, rules, or norms. It is deeply connected to how we are seen and judged by others. It's like an inner voice saying, "You're not what you're supposed to be. You're not okay. Look what people think." Examples. You said something wrong in company, and you feel like falling through the ground. Someone reproached you for your appearance, and shame is switched on inside, even though you did nothing wrong. A mistake in public and in the head sounds, "What will they think of me?" Shame is often accompanied by a desire to hide, disappear, not to be seen. It can cause a flushed face, slumped shoulders, a tightness in the body. Shame says, "There is something wrong with me." Guilt is about I am bad in my own eyes. Guilt is an inner feeling that we have done something wrong towards ourselves, towards others, or towards our own values. It is already a moral experience, independent of the opinion of others. Guilt can appear even when no one is judging, but there is a feeling inside. I shouldn't have done that. I have let myself, or another person down. Examples. You've hurt someone close to you and then can't let go of the guilt, even though they've forgiven you. You promised yourself something important, and you didn't keep your word. You blame yourself internally. No one knows what you did, but it's hard inside, because I'm not the person I want to be. Guilt says, I did a bad thing. I violated my inner principles. Why it's important to distinguish shame from guilt. When we confuse guilt with shame, we begin to identify with the mistake. Instead of I did something wrong and I can fix it, there is an attitude of I am my own fault, wrong, bad. Such shame becomes the core of self-esteem. It paralyzes, causes anxiety, social isolation, perfectionism, and even psychosomatic illness. Healthy guilt can be a point of growth. It helps you realize that something was wrong and inspires you to fix it. Toxic shame, on the other hand, says it's useless to change, I'll always be wrong. How to untangle this tangle? Mindfulness and bodywork. Ask yourself the question, do I feel that I have done wrong, or that I am wrong in principle? Observe your body. Shame is often accompanied by a desire to disappear, guilt by internal judgment. Allow yourself to be honest. Shame is not your essence. It is a mask once given. Remember, guilt can lead to action. Shame can lead to self-destruction. Choose mindfulness. Say healing phrases to yourself. I am not my mistake. I am a person who learns, feels, and grows. If I am at fault, I can apologize. If I feel shame, I can regain my dignity. How do people whose psyche is inhabited by guilt behave? A person whose psyche has guilt firmly entrenched in their psyche is rarely directly aware of the condition. Guilt becomes a background emotional field that distorts perception, affects actions, self-esteem, and even gait, intonation, and facial expressions. It is not just a feeling that arises sometimes. It is an internal script of life, an unconscious attitude through which a person interacts with the world. First, people in whom guilt lives constantly apologize, even when it's not needed. Such people are conditioned to feel guilty simply for occupying space, expressing an opinion, or showing emotions. They automatically say sorry, even if they've done nothing wrong. These apologies are not for specific actions, but for their very existence. Often, this is a result of upbringing, where any display of childlike spontaneity was seen as bad behavior. Second, people in whom guilt lives tend to people-please and self-sacrifice. They find it difficult to set boundaries and say no because inside their mind, there's a voice: if I don't please others, they won't love me. I'm guilty if I upset someone. They take on others' tasks, desires, and emotions, forgetting about themselves. This behavior is an attempt to compensate for their inner guilt, to earn forgiveness and love through constant self-sacrifice. Third, they avoid conflict and suppress aggression. Anger and disagreement are taboo for a person with internal guilt. Any display of strength or assertiveness feels wrong, selfish, dangerous. It's better to stay silent than risk being bad. It's better to swallow it down than engage in a debate. As a result, suppressed aggression turns into inner tension, anxiety, and psychosomatic issues, from migraines to digestive problems. Fourth, people in whom guilt lives are afraid to make decisions. Making decisions requires inner support and confidence in one's right to choose. People with chronic guilt feel fear. What if I choose the wrong thing? What if it harms someone? I'll be guilty again. So they procrastinate, shift responsibility to others, or choose based on the principle of what's best for everyone, not for me. Fifth, people in whom guilt lives are prone to self-deprecation, criticism, and self-doubt. Their inner dialogue is full of phrases like, "You've ruined everything again, you won't manage, you don't deserve good things, you're guilty because." Such a person lives with an inner judge who is never satisfied. Even in success, they find guilt. I don't deserve it. I was just lucky, others need it more. Sixth, they feel like they constantly need to atone. They unconsciously search for ways to compensate for their guilt by doing more than they can, helping people who haven't asked for it, or carrying others' problems. Life becomes a long atonement for mistakes, shortcomings, or even just for existing. Even when everything is fine, anxiety kicks in. Is everything too good? I'll probably have to pay for it somehow. Why is it important to become aware of guilt? The main danger of guilt is that it becomes part of a person's identity. They no longer just feel guilty, but they become someone who is always guilty, always wrong, always needs to do more. Understanding this pattern is the first step to breaking it. After all, guilt is not innate. It's implanted, taught, and cultivated, which means it can be replaced with inner support, self-compassion, and healthy strength. Why is it important to free yourself from guilt? Guilt seems like something natural to us, almost an obligatory element of moral and spiritual development. We've been taught to think that guilt is a sign of conscience, a marker of humanity. That a good person must feel guilty. But if we look deeper, it becomes obvious: guilt is not a virtue, but an anchor. An anchor that holds us in the past, paralyzes us in the present, and cuts us off from the future. It's an internal brake that prevents us from moving forward, developing, enjoying life, building relationships, and being in touch with ourselves. Guilt and distorted perception. When guilt becomes a constant background, everything around us is tinted with shades of danger, suspicion, and fear. We begin to see the world as a court and ourselves as the accused. I've done something wrong again, now I'll be judged, I'm bad, I don't deserve this. Reality becomes distorted. Even neutral events are interpreted through the lens of guilt. This causes internal anxiety, hypercontrol, and constant self-criticism. Guilt prevents us from enjoying and accepting success even when something good happens in life: progress, recognition, happy relationships. A person living with guilt cannot accept it. Inside, it's like, I don't deserve this isn't for me, soon this will end and I'll feel ashamed. Instead of joy, there is tension. Instead of gratitude, there is anxiety. Guilt poisons pleasure and takes away the sense of having the right to happiness. Guilt destroys relationships. Guilt can manifest in relationships in two polar ways: through accusations. A person, feeling inner guilt, unconsciously starts to search for someone to blame around them in order to relieve themselves. This leads to conflicts, reproaches, and passive aggression. Through people-pleasing. Another variant is the desire to earn love through sacrifice, concessions, and dissolving oneself in the partner. This leads to resentment, emotional burnout, and loss of identity in the relationship. In both cases, the result is the same: the destruction of the connection. Because guilt creates inequality, one owes, the other suffers, and no one is free. Energy blockages. As long as guilt lives inside, a huge amount of energy goes into self-control, self-blame, and internal struggles. The energy that could be directed toward creativity, movement, and love gets stuck in the body, in the head, in the past. It's like carrying a heavy bag of bricks on your back. At first, it's unnoticed, then it becomes a habit, and eventually, it's exhausting. And often, this bag isn't even ours. It's made up of other people's expectations, parental programming, past traumas. Chronic stress and psychosomatics. Guilt is an internal stressor that works all the time. It provokes tension in the body, insomnia, depression, and apathy. Over time, it can turn into psychosomatic symptoms: tightness in the neck and shoulders, lower back pain, chronic fatigue, headaches, digestive disorders. The body literally screams, stop blaming yourself. Let yourself live. Why guilt was once useful, and why it's time to let it go. At one point, guilt was indeed useful. In childhood, it helped us adapt to the demands of adults, survive, be good, and not be rejected. It was a survival tool. But now, you are an adult. And continuing to live as if there's a strict parent watching every step you take means rejecting freedom, maturity, and the right to be yourself. Guilt no longer serves its purpose. It's a brake. And freeing yourself from it is not selfishness, not irresponsibility, but a path to maturity, self-love, and the restoration of inner strength. Life without guilt is the ability to choose, not to please. The ability to rejoice without the feeling of it's not allowed. The readiness to build healthy relationships. Calmness instead of an anxious background. The right to be yourself, not the role of the guilty one. How to free yourself from guilt. A guide. Guilt lives inside us for years, unnoticed, yet painful. It becomes part of the personality, affecting choices, self-esteem, and relationships. But it is possible and necessary to free yourself from guilt. Not forcibly, not aggressively, but gently, consciously, with the body and the mind. Such liberation requires a comprehensive approach. The body, emotions, consciousness, and subconscious must work in tandem. First, liberation begins with awareness. Before releasing guilt, you need to notice it. Not only as a thought, I am guilty, but also as a sensation in the body. The body is our faithful indicator. It reacts to internal guilt first. Earlier in this video, techniques for finding guilt in the body were mentioned. Use them. Write down where you found guilt. Second, find the opposite state in your body. I am right to move out of guilt. It's important not only to feel it, but also to know what freedom from it feels like. Practice. Call up the physical sensation of being right on another piece of paper. I am right, or I am worthy. Stand on that piece of paper, close your eyes. Breathe calmly, consciously. Feel. How does your body sense inner agreement with yourself? Where does it relax? Where does lightness, confidence, and support appear? This is very important. Remember and write down these bodily sensations. This is your support. Your alternative to guilt. Your new resource. Third, awareness in everyday life. Replacing guilt with self-assurance. At first, guilt will still activate automatically. Your task is to catch the moment and switch. Practice conscious switching. Felt guilt in your thoughts, or even in your body. Stop. Name it. Right now, guilt has been triggered in me. Shift your attention to your body. Where is it? How is it manifesting? Recall where you found guilt earlier using the practices. Did the sensations match? Then, recall that I am right feeling in your body. Call it up artificially. Breathe, straighten your shoulders, stand as you did on the I am right paper. Remind yourself, I have the right to make mistakes. I am human. I am learning. I am enough. I am valuable. This is not a game of self-persuasion. This is reprogramming your reactions, from habitual guilt to self-confidence. Fourth, work with the mind. Internal dialogue. Yes, the body remembers everything. But the mind also wants to participate. It likes to understand. Convince it. Practice inner dialogue. Write or speak. I no longer need to punish myself. I am not obligated to be perfect. I am human, not an image in someone's mind. I respect myself. I give myself the right to be. I am safe. These internal dialogues are like new neural pathways. The more often you repeat them, the stronger they become. Subliminals as a way of liberation. Subliminal audio is a powerful tool that works on the subconscious level. They help rewrite deep programs that the conscious mind is often unable to track. In the context of guilt, subliminal can reduce inner criticism, activate inner acceptance, create a sense of freedom of choice, support the feeling of I am worthy, even if that wasn't felt before. It's important to note, subliminals are not a magic pill. They are a supplement to inner work. You can find a subliminal for liberation from guilt on my channel. They work best when combined with meditations, especially for forgiveness and acceptance, body practices, stretching, breathing, grounding, emotional work, emotional freedom technique, written reflection, journals, letters to yourself, lists of new beliefs. My path of liberation from guilt. Lived experience. Working with guilt is not an easy process. It's like a soft, but persistent return to yourself. Not in words, but in sensations, in reactions, in how you live each day. To make this journey more conscious, structured, and tangible, I decided to create something concrete for myself, short tasks with questions that became my support. Later, you will be able to find them in my playlists. I will make them available for everyone, so anyone can go through their own path of liberation. What I included in my shorts. Questions for working with the mind, aimed at various universal types of guilt, from guilt towards parents, to guilt over success, choice, refusal, and much more. Some types of guilt were unfamiliar to me, and that's okay. I simply skipped those tasks, allowing myself to be honest. Instructions for working with the body, so that I wouldn't get lost in the sensations, but instead learned to listen to where and how guilt manifests inside. These shorts became not just a series of tasks, they turned into a personal path of self-understanding. How this happened in life, daily practice. In addition to working with the mind and body in the tasks, I included working with guilt in my daily life. For example, in the morning, alone with myself, I would simply say, "Today, I am ready to work with guilt. I am open to healing." The words were simple, but behind them was a deep inner intention. And something magical happened. Life responded. Throughout the day, situations were presented to me, almost as if on command, where I could notice how guilt would trigger. Sometimes this happened immediately, sometimes with a delay, depending on my readiness. One fact particularly struck me: the higher my inner vibrations, the easier the lessons were. The easier lessons came at the end, when most of the guilt had already been processed. In those cases, I would see situations in real life where people I knew were experiencing guilt. So, now I was no longer living the guilt and being involved. I was simply an observer. This was much easier to perceive. But it's important not to relax, not to give in, and not to immerse myself in that person's guilt. In those moments, I would tell the person that they were right, everything was okay, and I would explain it. I was communicating with their mind. For myself, I would try to recall the sensation of being right with my body, feeling it in my body, straightening my shoulders, breathing deeper. It may have seemed like a small thing, but in those moments, body and spirit merged into one. I am free from guilt. I am worthy. Difficulties and support on the path. At the beginning, it was incredibly difficult. When guilt would trigger upon my specific request, I would truly fall into torment and self-analysis. Moreover, when there was still a lot of guilt within me, situations would be presented to me with my personal involvement. It felt as though something inside was breaking. In these moments, you must not give up. You must not dive into the guilt. Instead, you need to activate the physical sensation of being right. We've already identified that feeling. You need to focus on your body and talk to your mind, explaining to your mind that you are human and you deserve good things. The point is to choose yourself in those situations and make that an automatic reaction. I won't hide it, it was all very difficult, especially in the beginning. At one point, I couldn't switch from guilt to a sense of being right. In such cases, I would just repeat mindlessly to myself like a robot, "I am right, I am right, I am right, I am right," until it eased. Interestingly, in the next situation, it became easier. I was already spending less time shifting to my sense of being right, for example, not half a day, but just 10 minutes. And so on, until I was able to switch this feeling immediately. The ice began to break. So, if you've switched from guilt to a sense of being right even once, don't stop there. Now, in every situation where you blame yourself, replace that with the feeling of being right, of freedom. You need to form new reflexes, a new behavioral strategy, new neural connections, and create a new path where you walk the road of "I am right." Forget the road called "I am guilty," don't walk there, and it will become overgrown with grass. Thus, by choosing to be right and worthy many times, you will gradually forget about guilt. It won't be enough to choose not to blame yourself, just once or twice. You need to do this always, and gradually, you will get used to it. Yes, It's so difficult in the beginning to break your habitual patterns, but you are building a new, harmonious personality. The fruits of this work on yourself are truly invaluable. I also used all the supportive tools, like mental painkillers, meditations, subliminals, breathing practices, and, of course, my shorts with tasks. To be honest, it was the shorts with questions for the mind that helped me free myself from perhaps 50% of the accumulated guilt. I worked more with my thinking, and with my body. I admit, I was a bit lazy. I'm sure that if I had combined both approaches equally, the result would have been even deeper. Now, I am going through these tasks for the second time, to see what has changed. I check myself, track my reactions, and test, is the guilt still there, where it used to be painful? Freedom from guilt, a return to yourself. It's a journey, not a one-time leap. But every step is already a relief. Every realization is already a form of liberation. The more you are in touch with your body, the more honestly you talk to yourself, the easier it becomes to let go of guilt and return to a life where you are not guilty, but simply living. It's important to gently, step by step, create a new personality, one that is free, alive, and self-respecting. The benefits of working with guilt: energy and inspiration, confidence and inner strength, improved relationships, clarity in desires and goals, the ability to say no. What helps to soothe guilt? Acknowledge its presence. Separate guilt from responsibility. Not everything is within your zone of responsibility. Understand who and when this pattern was laid down. Find the place in your body where this feeling lives. Breathe into that place. Tell yourself, I have the right to be myself, I am not my guilt. Working with yourself, not always sweet, but always out of love. This journey is not always easy, not always fast. Sometimes you have to go through tears, misunderstanding, fear. But we are not doing this for perfection. We do this for life. For the freedom to be ourselves. For the joy of the present moment, in which there is no need to shrink, apologize, or please others. We work with ourselves, because we feel we deserve harmony. And if you are just at the beginning of this journey, remember, even one honest realization is already moving you forward. You are not alone. You deserve to be free. In conclusion, guilt is not the enemy. It is part of the experience, part of the journey. But when it interferes with living, it's time to say goodbye. Not in battle, but with love and awareness. The program that once protected is now holding you back. And it's time to gently, yet confidently, let it go. I invite you to explore this path with me, through subliminals, meditations, breathing practices, body work, and inner work. Step by step, we will free ourselves from what keeps us from being ourselves. True. Free. Alive.